The first time Evelyn Whitmore kissed me, she was 8 days away from marrying a man powerful enough to erase my life with a phone call. She had come to Blackbird Ink after closing in a white silk dress, asking me to tattoo a bird escaping a golden cage across the scar beneath her ribs. I should have refused. Instead, I listened as she told me she wanted to own one thing on her own body, and I let myself believe the fear in her eyes mattered more than the wedding ring waiting for her. By morning, the whole city was celebrating her perfect love story. By the end of the week, my studio would be under attack, my mother's surgery would become leverage, and Evelyn would have to choose between the gilded prison that had protected her all her life and the woman who had shown her the open door. But that night, beneath the white lights of my studio, neither of us understood how expensive freedom could be. The bell over Blackbird Ink's front door rang at 11 minutes past closing. I looked up from the cash drawer with one hand beneath the counter, my fingers already wrapped around the canister of pepper spray Maya insisted I keep there. Rain shivered against the studio windows. Beyond the glass, Westbridge's arts district had emptied into wet pavement and smeared neon. The woman who entered wore a camel-colored coat buttoned to her throat, dark glasses despite the late hour, and a silk scarf over hair I recognized before the door had fully closed. Evelyn Whitmore. 8 days from then, the woman standing beneath Blackbird Ink's flickering bird-shaped sign was supposed to marry Adrian Cole, in what every television station in the city had already named the wedding of the year. I released the pepper spray, but I did not relax. We're closed. She locked the door behind herself. That made me reach beneath the counter again. Evelyn lifted both hands. I was told you took private appointments. Not from people who lock themselves in. A faint flush rose over the heiress's cheekbones. She unlocked the door at once. Up close, her disguise was expensive enough to attract more attention than it prevented. The coat had hand-finished seams. The scarf was real silk, not the glossy imitations sold at the market 2 streets over. Even the rain on her shoulders seemed curated. But there was something uncurated about the way she stood. Too still. Too watchful. I need a tattoo, Evelyn said. Congratulations. We open at 10. I need it tonight. I closed the drawer. Then you need another studio. I need you. The words landed with more force than they should have. I felt them before I had any right to. I leaned back against the counter. I wore black jeans, a faded, sleeveless shirt, and enough ink over both arms to make wealthy clients either stare too long or perform exaggerated indifference. My dark hair was clipped away from my face. A silver ring gleamed through one eyebrow. Evelyn Whitmore stared at none of it. She stared directly into my eyes. That, more than the expensive coat, made me wary. Have we met? I asked. No. You say that like you've rehearsed it. I rehearse most things. On television, Evelyn's voice was warm, polished, and gently amused, as though the whole world were a charity luncheon she had agreed to improve with her presence. Here, without microphones, her voice sounded lower, tired. The weariness made her seem real in a way I had not expected. I glanced toward the black security camera mounted in the corner. Evelyn followed my gaze. Is that recording? Yes. Can it be turned off? No. A pause. Then I'll leave. She reached for the door. I watched the tension between her shoulder blades. It was not the irritation of a celebrity denied special treatment. It looked more like fear, and fear was harder for me to dismiss. Why does it need to be private? I asked. Her hand remained on the lock. Because if anyone sees it before Saturday, I won't be allowed to finish it. Saturday, the wedding. I folded my arms. Allowed? She turned. For 1 second, something sharp appeared beneath her controlled expression. Then it vanished. My family is traditional. Traditional people usually object before the needle goes in. My family objects to things after they've discovered they can't prevent them. That answer was almost honest. Almost. I nodded toward the consultation table. Take off the glasses. She hesitated, then removed them. Her eyes were gray-green, more severe than they looked in photographs. Shadows lay beneath them, concealed badly with makeup. A tiny red mark near the bridge of her nose suggested she had worn the glasses for hours. I pulled a consent form from a drawer. Legal name. You know my name. I know the name on the billboards. I need the one on your identification. Surprise flickered over her face. Then she reached into her handbag. The driver's license, said Evelyn Margaret Whitmore, 25 years old. Current address at the Whitmore Grand Hotel penthouse. I passed her the form. No alcohol tonight? No. Blood thinners? No. Pregnant? Her mouth tightened. No. Allergies? Latex. I tapped the line with one fingernail. Write it down. She obeyed. There was something strange about watching a woman who appeared on magazine covers bend over Blackbird Ink's scarred consultation table and fill out an ordinary form with an ordinary pen. Her handwriting was neat enough to be a font. Every letter stood upright and careful. Even then, I wondered how much effort it took her to remain that controlled. What do you want? I asked. Evelyn opened her handbag and withdrew a folded page. The drawing was rough. A bird with one wing through the open door of a cage, the other still caught between golden bars. I studied it. You drew this? Yes. You're not bad. I took lessons. Of course you did. She looked up. Was that meant to be insulting? It was an observation. You make observations sound like crimes. Occupational hazard. I flattened the paper. How large? Evelyn unbuttoned the coat. Underneath it, she wore a white silk dress. It was not a wedding gown, but it was close enough that my attention snagged. The sleeveless fabric was plain and fitted to her body with an elegant severity. A row of tiny covered buttons ran along one side. She reached for them. You can change behind the screen, I said. I can't see the placement behind the screen. There's a mirror. I need you to see it. I met her eyes. Her fingers were trembling. Not with seduction. Not yet. I stepped around the counter and pulled the privacy blinds across the front windows. I left the security camera running and switched on the bright task lamps near the main station. Show me. Evelyn undid the buttons. The dress loosened. She held it against her chest while turning, exposing the pale line of her side from beneath her arm to the curve above her hip. A scar crossed the lower edge of her ribs. It was long, narrow, and old enough to have faded, though one section remained raised and slightly pink. My professional instincts took over. I moved closer without touching. Surgery? When I was 16. What kind? Does it matter? It matters if there's nerve damage or if the tissue reacts when you touch it. She looked away. They removed part of my liver after a car accident. The answer sounded clipped at the edges. I washed my hands and opened a pair of nitrile gloves. At the snap of the first glove, Evelyn flinched. Do needles bother you? I asked. No. Touch? Her gaze returned to me. No. It was a lie, but I had learned that people came to tattoo studios carrying secrets in their skin. I did not need all of them, only the ones that affected the work. Raise your arm. She did. I placed 2 gloved fingers near the upper edge of the scar. Every muscle in her body tightened. Still no? I said I'm fine. I heard you. I traced the air rather than her skin, measuring the available space. The cage can sit along the scar. I'd use the line as one of the lower bars. The bird would rise toward your shoulder blade. Breaking out? Trying to. Not free yet? That depends on how you want the wings. Her breathing changed when I rested my palm briefly at her waist to guide her toward the mirror. The contact was necessary. It did not feel necessary. We stood close enough for me to see the tiny pulse moving in her throat. In the mirror, she watched me rather than the place where the tattoo would go. I noticed, and I wished I had not. I took a marker and drew the first line beneath the scar. Her hand found the edge of the table. Tell me if it hurts. It doesn't. I haven't started. A small, startled laugh escaped her. It transformed her face. The polished heiress disappeared. In her place was a young woman standing half-dressed beneath unforgiving lights, frightened and amused by the same thing. That was the first glimpse I had of Evie, though I did not call her that yet. I drew another line. Why this? I asked. The scar? The cage. Her laughter vanished. Outside, tires hissed over rain-slick pavement. Somewhere in the back room, the old refrigerator motor kicked on with a metallic cough. I waited. She looked at the sketch reflected in the mirror. Because I want to know what it feels like to own at least one thing on my own body. My marker stopped. She closed her eyes as though she regretted speaking. There were a dozen responses I could have given. Some gentle, some probing, some safely professional. I chose, a tattoo won't fix your life. I didn't ask it to. Good. I asked it to prove I had one. The task lights hummed between us. I capped the marker. The full piece needs several sessions. Your skin can't take all the shading at once. How many? 4, maybe 5. I have 8 days. I know. Her gaze sharpened. You recognized me. Your face is currently larger than my storefront on a billboard 3 blocks away. And you pretended not to. I was trying to be polite. That was you being polite? You should see me with people I dislike. For the first time, she smiled without cameras. Then I made the mistake of smiling back. The space between us altered. Evelyn turned from the mirror. The movement brought her almost chest to chest with me, the white dress still gathered in one hand. You dislike me, she said. I don't know you. You dislike people like me. People like you don't usually come here after closing. Maybe you don't know what people like me do after closing. Maybe I don't care. You care enough to ask about the cage. I care about doing the tattoo correctly. Only the tattoo? I stepped back. She caught the front of my shirt. It happened so quickly that I had time to register only the pressure of her fingers and the widening of her eyes before she pulled me down. The kiss was not hesitant. It was desperate, deliberate, and entirely real. Her mouth was soft and cold from the rain. I tasted mint and the faintest trace of coffee. For several dangerous seconds, instinct overwhelmed judgment. I caught her by the waist. She made a sound against my lips, barely more than a breath, and pressed closer. The white dress slipped another inch. I felt warm skin beneath my gloved hand. The glove, the dress, the wedding, Adrian Cole's smiling face on every newsstand in Westbridge. I broke the kiss. Evelyn remained motionless, one hand still twisted in my shirt. What was that? I asked. Color flooded her face. Don't tell me you don't know. She released me and turned away so abruptly that her shoulders struck the metal tray beside the chair. Instruments rattled. I steadied them. She fumbled with the buttons of her dress. Wait, the marker will transfer. I have to go. Evelyn. The use of her name stopped her. For an instant, she looked at me in the mirror. No public smile, no practiced grace, only terror. Then she pulled the coat around herself, grabbed the drawing, and left. The bell slammed once above the door. I stood beneath the white lights, my gloves still on, my pulse beating hard enough to make my fingers throb. On the counter lay Evelyn's unsigned aftercare sheet. Across its blank reverse side, the damp edge of the sketch had left a faint, golden smear. By 8 the next morning, the kiss had become impossible. I knew because Evelyn Whitmore appeared on the television mounted above the waiting area. Maya Ortiz turned up the sound with the end of a cleaning brush. There she is, Maya said. Westbridge's sacrificial lamb in couture. On screen, Evelyn stood beside Adrian Cole on the steps of the Whitmore Grand. She wore cream, and he wore navy, and together they looked like an advertisement for inherited power. A reporter called out, Evelyn, are you nervous about Saturday? Evelyn laughed. It was the same laugh I had heard beneath the task lights, but emptied of surprise. Only about tripping over the dress. Adrian placed a hand at her waist, exactly where my hand had been. Maya glanced toward me. Why are you glaring at the television like it owes you rent? I hate morning shows. You hate mornings. Shows are innocent. I turned away and began restocking ink caps. Maya had worked beside me long enough to identify silence as evidence. What happened last night? A client came in late. What kind of client? The late kind. Did the late client happen to leave that? Maya pointed beneath the counter. The corner of Evelyn's sketch protruded from where I had shoved it. I pulled it free. Maya saw the bird, and her teasing expression softened. That's beautiful. It's unfinished. Most things are before you work on them. I folded the paper and put it in my desk. I spent the day pretending not to think about gray-green eyes in a mirror. At 10:48 that night, after Maya had left and the last client's laughter had faded down the street, my phone vibrated. Unknown number. I nearly ignored it. Then the message appeared. What time does the studio close? I need to see you. This time, it isn't about the tattoo. I read it twice. Pride told me to delete it. Curiosity told me to wait. Memory supplied the pressure of Evelyn's mouth. I typed, 11. But if you walk through that door, you have to tell me why you kissed me. The message showed as delivered. 3 seconds later, the bell over the door rang. Evelyn stood on the other side of the glass in an oversized black hoodie, her face bare, her hair damp from the rain. This time, she waited for me to unlock the door. Much later, Evie told me she had spent most of her life learning how to enter rooms. There was the bright, measured entrance used at galas, the modest entrance used at hospitals, The slower entrance demanded by photographers when a dress had a train. The intimate entrance into donor dinners, where every person had to believe she remembered them. But no one had ever taught her how to enter a room where she had kissed a woman and fled. I unlocked the studio door, but I did not open it. For a moment, we stood separated by glass. She could have turned around. I learned later that the Whitmore driver waited 2 streets away under instructions not to ask where she had gone. Julian Pike believed she was visiting a seamstress. Adrian thought she was asleep. Every lie in her life had been arranged to create those next few minutes. I opened the door. You have 30 seconds to decide whether you're coming in. She stepped across the threshold. The lock clicked behind her. Blackbird Ink felt different without clients. I had turned off the music. Lamps illuminated islands of black leather and stainless steel, while the rest of the studio receded into shadow. The air smelled of disinfectant, ink, and the sandalwood candle burning near the register. I wore the same black jeans as the previous night and a clean gray shirt with the sleeves rolled high. My hair was loose, falling to the base of my neck in uneven dark waves. Evie would admit she had thought about those details all day. That was the problem for both of us. "Why did you kiss me?" I asked. No greeting, no offer of coffee. She had expected nothing else. Because I wanted to. That explains the mechanics, not the reason. I find you attractive. And you're getting married. In 8 days. So your calendar works. She pushed back the hood. I didn't come here to be mocked. No, you came because you thought I'd make you feel brave. The accuracy of it struck her like a hand across the face. I saw the reaction and did not apologize. I went behind the counter and took out the folded drawing. You forgot this. She accepted it. Thank you. Now answer the question. I did. You said you wanted to. People want things for reasons. Do you analyze every woman who kisses you? Only the engaged ones. She looked down at the drawing. The bird's open beak had been smudged by rain. I'm sorry I ran. You're not sorry you kissed me? No. My jaw shifted before I could stop it. She noticed. She told me later that the tiny movement thrilled her more than it should have. Then she gave me the first piece of an answer. She had known about me for 4 months. It had begun at an arts fundraiser in the Whitmore Grand Ballroom. The foundation had invited 6 independent artists to create live pieces. I had arrived in a black jacket with ink on my wrist, and no visible interest in impressing anyone her description, not mine. Halfway through the evening, a real estate developer named Marcus Vale had snapped his fingers at a young server and called her useless for spilling wine near his shoes. Everyone had looked away. Evie had looked away too. I had not. I crossed the ballroom, placed myself between Marcus and the trembling server, and said, "You can speak to her like a human being, or you can clean the floor yourself." Marcus laughed. I handed him a towel. He stopped laughing. The hotel manager rushed over. Donors whispered. My installation was quietly moved away from the main stage. Later, Evie found out that I had refused compensation rather than sign an apology. It was the first time she had watched someone confront power without calculating the cost. In her memory, the recklessness of it had seemed holy. Hearing that made me uncomfortable in ways I did not yet know how to name. I saw you at a foundation event, she said. My gaze narrowed. Which one? The Winter Artists' Benefit. Did I tattoo you there? You confronted Marcus Vale. Recognition came slowly. The server. You stood up for her. Someone had to. I didn't. No. I meant no cruelty, which somehow made it worse. Her fingers tightened on the paper. You didn't know who he was. I knew exactly who he was. Men like that always introduce themselves before they insult someone. He was worth nearly $1 billion. Did that make the floor less wet? She laughed despite herself. I did not. I kept thinking about you, she admitted. I looked up the studio. I read interviews. There are 2, and one misquotes me. I know. Which line? You said tattoos are promises people make to their future selves. My expression changed before I could hide it. That was the misquote. What did you actually say? That tattoos are arguments with the past. She looked at the bird. That's better. It's less marketable. I suppose I wanted to meet someone who could say no and survive it. And you thought kissing me would teach you? No. She met my eyes. I thought kissing you might be one decision no one else made first. The silence that followed seemed to absorb the whole studio. I leaned one hip against the counter. Tell me about Adrian. He's my fiancé. I've seen the news. The engagement was arranged. By whom? Our fathers, mostly. The Whitmore Group needs capital for an international expansion. Cole Capital wants controlling interest in 3 properties and access to the Whitmore name. The marriage convinces the board that the partnership is permanent. You make it sound like a property transfer. That's what it is. Then refuse. She almost smiled. There it was. The simple word. The one I had offered Marcus Vale as though no were a door anyone could open. You think I haven't? Have you? When I was 22, my father suggested the match for the first time. I told him I would never marry Adrian. What happened? He terminated the foundation's grant to an arts program I managed. 6 teachers lost their jobs. My posture stiffened. The next time I refused, she continued, he closed a scholarship fund in my mother's name. When I tried to move out, he threatened the pensions of 2 household employees who helped me pack. When I opened an account he couldn't monitor, his attorneys accused the bank manager of violating a family trust. He punishes other people. Yes. So you learned obedience. I learned consequences. I crossed my arms. And Adrian? He doesn't shout. He doesn't hit me. He reminds me of appointments I never made. He changes my driver if I go somewhere without permission. He knows the passwords to my accounts. He has opinions about my clothes, my friends, my schedule, my expressions in photographs. Your expressions? He says I look cold when I don't smile. You do. She stared at me, my mouth tilted. Look cold. The unexpected teasing loosened something in her chest. I saw it in the way she moved closer. I straightened at once. I'm not going to kiss you, she said. Good. Unless you ask. I won't. Then you can stop looking at my mouth. My gaze snapped upward. She looked suddenly, dangerously alive. I retrieved a clipboard before I forgot every sensible thought I had. Sit down. For what? You wanted the tattoo. You said this wasn't about the tattoo. You said that. I didn't. She removed the hoodie. Beneath it, she wore a black tank top and loose trousers borrowed from one of the housekeepers. She looked exposed despite clothing that covered so much. I prepared the station with efficient movements. Your family can't know, I said. No. Your fiancé can't know. No. And after Saturday? Her throat tightened. I looked at her. That's what I thought. I don't know what happens after Saturday. I do. You go on a honeymoon. I finish other people's tattoos. I could come back. As Mrs. Cole? My name will still be Whitmore. Not the part that matters. The words hurt her because she understood them. They hurt me because I already cared whether she returned. I unwrapped a new razor and gestured toward the privacy screen. Change. Keep the robe open at the side. When she returned, I had pulled on gloves. The sound pulled her back to the previous night, I noticed. Still okay? Yes. Use words if that changes. The stencil was cool against her ribs. I kept my hands steady and professional. That somehow made the memory of the kiss worse for both of us. She watched me in the mirror. Why do you hate wealthy people? She asked. I don't. You do. I distrust people who think money makes consequences optional. My family believes money is consequences. Same disease. Did someone wealthy hurt you? I adjusted the stencil. That question costs more than you're paying. I could afford it. The air chilled. She regretted the words instantly. I saw it, but the apology could not erase the instinct behind them. I removed both hands from her. That right there. I'm sorry. You think everything has a price, even when you don't mean to. I said I was sorry. I heard you. I stepped away to examine the placement. She forced herself not to fill the silence. At last, I said, my mother needed surgery when I was in art school. Insurance covered most of it, until they decided part of the procedure wasn't medically necessary. I left school, worked 3 jobs, opened this place with loans I'm still paying. The surgeon who saved her life has a wing named after your family. I didn't know. Of course not. There was no accusation in my tone, only fact. Evie had benefited from systems so large, she could not see the people beneath them. What happened to your mother? She lived. My voice softened despite me. Does she still teach? You did a thorough investigation. I read the studio profile. She retired. Her health isn't perfect. I'm glad she lived. My gloved hand settled at Evie's waist again. Me too. The tattoo machine began to buzz. The first line burned into her skin. She inhaled sharply. Breathe, I said. I am breathing. You're performing breathing. Try the real kind. She let out a shaky laugh and tried again. The needle moved along the scar. Pain gathered slowly, a bright, scraping heat. She had endured fittings, surgeries, injections, and hours beneath hot lights for photographs. None had felt like this. This pain belonged to her. After 20 minutes, sweat cooled at the base of her spine. I paused. Water? No, that wasn't a challenge. I don't want to stop. Your body disagrees. I took off one glove, opened a bottle, and held it out. Her hand shook too badly to grip it. She hated that I saw. Without comment, I brought the bottle to her lips. She drank. Our eyes met over the rim. My bare fingers rested against her jaw. The touch was gentle enough to undo her, and the trust in it nearly undid me. Better? I asked. She nodded. I started to withdraw. She caught my hand. It was instinct. Need. I went still. The machine continued humming on the tray. Evie. That was the first time I called her by the name that belonged to the woman rather than the billboards. I know. Do you? No. Honesty trembled between us. I did not pull away. I let her hold my hand until the shaking passed. Then I put on a fresh glove and finished the first outlines of the cage. Our next 2 sessions took place after midnight. Evie learned the sounds of Blackbird Ink, the old pipes knocking after the heat switched on, the click of my tongue when a line displeased me, the way rain softened the city beyond the windows. I learned Evie drank coffee black when no one was watching, hated orchestral wedding music, and could identify hotel linens by thread count with her eyes closed. On the 3rd night, the bird began to emerge. One wing stretched toward freedom. The other remained caught between 2 bars. You made it look angry, Evie said. Wouldn't you be? I thought it might look afraid. Fear and anger share a wall. Which side are you on? I wiped away excess ink. Depends who's asking. She turned her head. I was close. My lashes lowered in concentration. A faint scar crossed my chin, pale against olive-toned skin. She wanted to touch it. Later, she told me how much. Instead, she asked, have you ever been in love? The needle stopped. That isn't tattoo conversation. We've discussed surgery, debt, my father, and your hatred of silk. I don't hate silk. You said it was impractical. It slips. The word hung between us. Her pulse stumbled. Mine did too. I resumed shading. I've been in love. What happened? She wanted a version of me who needed her more. Did you? No. Maybe you did, and that frightened you. My mouth tightened. Careful. Is that a warning? Yes. She turned toward me despite the burn in her side. I caught her shoulder. Don't move. Then stop giving me reasons. Reasons to what? She kissed me. This time there was no panic. My hand tightened at her shoulder. She felt the moment my resistance broke. I switched off the machine, set it aside, and kissed her back with a hunger that had been building in every silence between us. She reached for my waist. I caught her wrist, not roughly, firmly. The kiss ended with both of us breathing too fast. Do you want me? I asked. Or do you want the feeling of defying your father? She opened her mouth. Nothing came. My eyes went flat with disappointment. That's what I thought. It isn't simple. It is for me. You think I'm using you. I think you don't know. That isn't the same thing. It becomes the same thing when I'm the one left standing here after your wedding. She pulled the robe closed. I didn't ask you to wait for me. No, you asked for everything except the part that would make it honest. My words followed her home. What happened there? She told me later. At breakfast the next morning, Adrian discussed the guest list while she stared into untouched coffee. At noon, Julian handed her a schedule for the engagement gala. At 3, her father mentioned that the foundation had commissioned an art installation from a local studio. Evie looked down at the contract. Blackbird Ink. Her stomach dropped. I didn't request this, she said. Charles glanced up from his tablet. No, Adrian did. That evening, a courier delivered my copy of the contract. The fee was large enough to keep Blackbird Ink open for months. At the bottom of the authorization page, beneath a neat digital signature, was the name, Adrian Cole. I read the contract 4 times before calling Maya. She arrived at the studio carrying takeout noodles and the expression of a woman prepared to enjoy someone else's disaster. So, she said, dropping into the consultation chair, the fiancé hired us. He approved the contract. Same flavor of terrible. We should refuse. We owe $12,000 in equipment payments. The landlord raised rent, and 3 of our chairs need replacing. We have 2 chairs. Exactly. It's a crisis. I tossed the contract onto the counter. Maya opened the noodles. Do you think he knows? I don't know. Did Evie tell him? No. You sound sure. She wouldn't. Maya lifted one eyebrow. That sounded dangerously like trust. It's an assessment. Of your secret heiress girlfriend. She isn't my girlfriend. Right. She's your secret heiress client who kisses you during appointments. Twice. Thank you for the clarification. I pressed my palms to the counter. I had not told Maya everything. Not how Evie had held my hand through the pain. Not how close I had come to forgetting the wedding entirely. Maya nudged the contract. Take the job. It could be a trap. It could also be money. Rich people invented money to make traps attractive. We'd be inside their hotel, which means they'll have more to lose if they sabotage us. I looked at Adrian's signature. The sensible choice was refusal. By midnight, I had signed. The Whitmore Grand's top floor had been transformed into a kingdom built from glass, orchids, and restrained panic. Staff moved under Julian Pike's direction with headsets and fixed smiles. Security guards stood near every elevator. Beyond the windows, Westbridge burned gold beneath the setting sun. Maya's and my installation occupied one wall of the ballroom, a collaborative mural on temporary panels, designed to fill over the course of the evening as guests added marks under our guidance. It was safe, prestigious, sanitized enough for donors. I hated it. You're scowling at a blank wall, Maya said. At least wait until it disappoints you. I'm checking the lighting. You've checked it 6 times. I adjusted a tray of paint pens. Across the ballroom, Adrian Cole entered with a small group of executives. He was taller than he appeared on television, broad-shouldered and meticulously dressed. His charm reached the room before he did. Staff straightened. Donors turned. He shook hands without seeming to notice how everyone else waited for his attention. Then, he saw me. For one unsettling second, recognition sharpened his face. He crossed the ballroom. Miss Blake! Mr. Cole, I'm glad you accepted. Your fee was persuasive. His smile widened. Honesty. Evelyn said that was one of your defining qualities. The room seemed to contract around me. She discusses tattoo artists often? Only memorable ones. Maya stepped beside me. I'm Maya Ortiz. Adrian gave her the precise amount of attention required by politeness. A pleasure. His gaze returned to me. I saw your work at the winter benefit. So that was the explanation. You were there? I attend all Whitmore Foundation events. You made an impression. I seem to have a talent for that. Yes, he said softly. You do. Music swelled near the entrance. Conversation shifted. Evelyn Whitmore appeared at the top of the staircase. The family had announced she would wear white. I had seen sketches of the gown online, a pearl-covered declaration of bridal innocence. Evie wore black. The dress followed every clean line of her body and left her back bare to the waist. A diagonal cut along one side exposed the upper edge of my work. Only part of the cage showed, a glint of gold. The dark sweep of a wing. No one else in the room understood. I did. Her gaze found mine instantly. The distance between us became unbearable. Then Adrian moved to the stairs and offered his hand. Evie gave him hers. He kissed her cheek for the cameras and placed his palm against the bare curve of her back, not quite covering the tattoo. I looked away, but not before jealousy burned through me. Subtle, Maya murmured. Do your job. I am. My job is apparently preventing you from committing murder with a paint pen. Guests began arriving in earnest. For 2 hours, I guided wealthy strangers through the installation. I smiled when required. I endured questions about whether tattoos made skin difficult to donate after death. I corrected a hedge fund manager who assumed Maya was an assistant. Evie remained across the room, surrounded by donors. Every few minutes, I felt her watching. A woman named Celeste Duval approached the installation near 9. She had copper hair, a low laugh, and a tattoo of a flowering vine disappearing beneath one shoulder strap. You did this? Celeste asked, indicating my forearm. Some of it. Would you do the rest? Depends what you want. Celeste leaned closer. I'm open to professional guidance. I recognized the performance. Under ordinary circumstances, I might have enjoyed it. That night I was too aware of Evie standing 20 feet away. Book a consultation, I said. Couldn't I persuade you to make an exception? Celeste touched my wrist. A champagne glass clicked sharply against a tray. Evie had set hers down too hard. Adrian glanced at her. She smiled at him, then crossed the ballroom. Miss Blake, she said. The public voice. My irritation flared. Miss Whitmore. My tattoo feels irritated. Celeste looked delighted. Your tattoo? A small private commission. Evie's eyes remained on me. Would you inspect it? Now? I would hate for an infection to develop at the event. Maya covered a laugh with a cough. I handed her the paint pens. 5 minutes. Evie led me to a private dressing room. The door closed. Silence dropped like a curtain. You're jealous, I said. She turned. The bandage is uncomfortable. There is no bandage. A beat passed. I may have removed it. 6 hours ago. You don't know that. I applied it. Her mouth compressed. I folded my arms. Do you touch Adrian the way you touched my wrist? I didn't touch your wrist. She did. I'm not responsible for her hands. You seemed interested in where they went next. You were watching. So were you. Evie stepped closer. I was watching a woman put her hands on you. And? And I disliked it. The admission changed the air and sent a dangerous thrill through me. I should have left. Instead, I said, turn around. She obeyed. The tattoo was visible through the dress's side opening. I moved behind her and carefully lifted the fabric. The skin surrounding the newest lines was pink but healthy. No irritation. Are you sure? I'm touching it. She watched me through the mirror. My fingers moved along the edge of the cage. Heat rose from her skin. Do you touch her the way you're touching me? Evie asked. I met her gaze in the glass. She isn't marrying someone else. Pain flickered across her face. I regretted the cruelty. I did not withdraw it. This was a mistake, she said. The dress? Coming in here. You brought me. She turned too fast. My hand remained trapped between us, my palm against her waist. Our mouths were inches apart. Tell me to move, I said. Her breath touched my lips. Would you? Yes? You sound disappointed. I am. Her eyes closed. A knock struck the door. Evelyn? Adrian called. Is everything all right? I stepped back. Evie rearranged the dress with swift, practiced movements. By the time she opened the door, the heiress had returned. Fine, she said. Miss Blake was checking the tattoo. Adrian looked between us. Of course. His smile reached neither eye. Later, I escaped to the terrace. Wind moved across the roof, carrying the threat of rain. The ballroom glittered behind the glass, full of people who believed money made them permanent. I gripped the railing. The terrace door opened. You shouldn't be here, I said. Evie joined me. Neither should you. I'm working. You abandoned the installation. Maya is better with donors. Everyone is better with donors than you. I almost smiled. Evie stood beside me. The city's lights caught the fine hairs along her bare arms. Why did Adrian hire me? I asked. I don't know. That answer is getting old. He knew I admired your work. Did he know about the tattoo? No. The kiss? No. Then why bring me here? She stared over the city. Adrian likes collecting information. He probably saw your name in my browser history or heard me mention the studio. That doesn't explain paying us. It might be a test. Of what? Me. I turned. What happens if you fail? Someone else pays. The flat certainty in her voice silenced me. She touched the railing. I tried to calculate what canceling the wedding would cost. Money? My home. My trust. Access to the foundation. Every program I oversee. You could build something else. With what? You're educated. You're connected. My connections belong to my father. Skills don't. She looked at me. You think leaving is a single act, she said. A door. A suitcase. A declaration. But my life is tied to people who depend on me. Then don't choose me. She flinched, and I felt the wound my words made. I forced myself to continue. I mean it. You don't have to choose me, but you have to stop letting everyone else choose you. I don't know how. Learn. The word came out gentler than I intended. She moved closer. I wore the dress for you. I know. I wanted you to see. I saw. What did you think? That you were either brave or reckless. Which? I haven't decided. She lifted one hand toward my face, then stopped before touching me. Would kissing you here be brave? No. Reckless? Yes? Then perhaps I'm both. I leaned in. The terrace door opened. Adrian stood behind us. Evie stepped away so quickly that the absence of her warmth felt violent. Adrian, she said. His gaze moved from her to me. Am I interrupting? Miss Blake was concerned about whether the weather would damage the installation materials. The lie was smooth. The tone was not. Evie looked at me with cool, professional distance. The tattoo artist hired for the event has been very attentive. The tattoo artist. I understood why she did it. Humiliation burned anyway. I should return to work, I said. See that you do, Evie replied. Adrian's expression remained pleasant. I passed him without speaking. I collected my jacket, told Maya to finish the installation without me, and left through the service elevator. By the time Evie found an excuse to search for me, I was gone. The next morning, an orange notice hung across Blackbird Ink's front door. Emergency health and safety inspection. Entry prohibited pending review. Maya swore beside me. I tore the envelope from beneath the notice. A business card fell onto the pavement. Adrian Cole. Across the back, written in blue ink. I think we should talk.